Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Purvi Rajakacharya Astotar Shata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Ki Jai. His compounder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pari Rajakacharya Astotar Shata Shri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Srila Satyanandana Bhaktivedanta Kaur Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Shri Rupa Sanata Bhatta Raghunatha Shijiva Gopala Bhatta Das Raghunatha Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prince Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Yamuna Mai Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Gurunath Raj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Iskand Bharma Guru Vrinda Ki Jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Gora Pramanande Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Sri Guru, Sri Guranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Jaiva Narottamam Devam Saraswatam Vyasam Vito Jayam Yuritet Nasta Preshu Avatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayan, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by the rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. All right. Good morning, everybody. So nice to see you all. So we are reading Canto 5, The Creative Impetus, and we are in Chapter 2. The activities of Maharaj Agnidra, and we're doing verses 4 and 5. And both of these verses are not in any meter that I know, and so please forgive me as I am sure to butcher them as I speak the Sanskrit. And let's see. So I'll just read through them, and then we'll just do the word for word on text 5. So text 4, Sachat Tad Ashramo Pavanam Ati Ramaniyam Vivida Nibita Vitapi Vitapa Nikara Samslishta Parata La Tarudra Stala Vighangama Mitunai Prochatyamana Shrutabi Pratibodhyamana Salila Kukuta Karanadava Kala Dibir Vichitram Upakujitamala Jalasya Kamala Karam Upabarama. Wow, sorry about that, guys. All right. So the translation of text 4 is, the Apsara sent by Lord Brahma began strolling in a beautiful park near the place where the king was meditating and worshiping. The park was beautiful because of its dense green foliage and golden creepers. There were pairs of varied birds such as peacocks, and in a lake there were ducks and swans, all vibrating very sweet sounds. Thus the park was magnificently beautiful because of the foliage the clear water, the lotus flowers, and the sweet singing of various kinds of birds. All right, in text 5. Tasya Sulalita Gamana Para Vinasya Gati Vilasayash Chanu Param Kana Kana Yamana Ruchira Charana Bharana Swanam Upakarnya Naradeva Kumara Samadhi Yogan Milita Nayana Nalina Mukala Yugalam Isha Vikachaya Vyachasta. Okay, and the so we can do the word for word for this one. Tasya of her Purvachiti. Sulalita and a very beautiful. Gamana movements. Paravinyasa with styles of walking. Gati in the progression. Vilasaya whose pastime. Cha also. Anupadam with every step. Kana Kana Yamana making a tinkling sound. Ruchira very pleasing. Charana Abharana of the ornaments on the feet. Swanam the sound. Upakarnya hearing. Naradeva Kumara the prince. Samadhi in ecstasy. Yogena by controlling the senses. Amilata Amarita half open. Nayana the eyes. Nalina of lotus. Mukula buds. Yugala like a pear. Isha slightly. Vikachaya opening. Vyachasta saw. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. As Purvachiti passed by on the road in very beautiful style and mood of her own, the pleasing ornaments on her ankles tinkled with her every step. Although Prince Agnidra was controlling his senses, practicing yoga with half-open eyes, he could see her with his lotus-like eyes, and when he heard the sweet tinkling of her bangles, he opened his eyes slightly more and could see that she was just nearby. Purport. It is said that yogis always think of the Supreme Personality of Godhead within their hearts. Jnana vastitata gatena manasa pashyanti yam yogina. Bhagavatam 12:13-1. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is always observed by yogis who practice controlling the venomous senses. As recommended in Bhagavad Gita, yogis should practice samprikshya nasikamgram, keeping their eyes half open. If the eyes are closed completely, there will be a tendency to sleep. So-called yogis sometimes practice a fashionable form of yoga by closing their eyes and meditating, but we have actually seen such so-called yogis sleeping and snoring while meditating. This is not the practice of yoga. To actually practice yoga, one should keep his eyes half open and gaze at the tip of his nose. Although Agnidra, the son of Priyavrata, was practicing mystic yoga and trying to control his senses, the tinkling sound of Purvachiti's ankle bells disturbed his practice. Yoga Indriya Samyamana. The actual yoga practice means controlling the senses. One must practice mystic yoga to control the senses, but the sense control of a devotee who fully engages in the service of the Lord with his purified senses, Rishikeshana Sevanam, can never be disturbed. Srila Prabodhana Saraswati therefore stated, Durdantendriya Kala Sarpa Patali Prok Hata Damstrayate. Chaitanya Charitamrita 5. The practice of yoga is undoubtedly good because it controls the senses, which are like venomous serpents. When one engages in devotional service, however, completely employing all the activities of the senses in the service of the Lord, the venomous quality of the senses become nullified. It is explained that a serpent is to be feared because of its poison fangs. But if those fangs are broken, the serpent, although it seems fearsome, is not at all dangerous. Devotees, therefore, may see hundreds of thousands of beautiful women with fascinating bodily movements and gestures, but not be allured, whereas such women would make ordinary yogis fall. Even the advanced yogi, Vishvamitra, broke his mystic practice to unite with Menaka and beget a child known as Shakuntala. The practice of mystic yoga, therefore, is not sufficiently strong to control the senses. Another example is Prince Agnitra, whose attention was drawn to the movements of Purvachiti, the Apsara, simply because he heard the tinkling of her ankle bells. In the same way that Vishvamitra Muni was attracted by the tinkling bangles of Menaka, Prince Agnitra, upon hearing the tinkling bells of Purvachiti, immediately opened his eyes to see her beautiful movements as she walked. The prince was also very handsome, as described herein. His eyes were just like the buds of lotus flowers. As he opened his lotus-like eyes, he could immediately see that the Apsara was present by his side. Om Gyana Chamarandasa Gyananjana Shalakaya Chaksharam Militam Yena Chasma Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupakara Mayam Darati Swavatantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Taparakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakritatam Sahagana Ragavatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Savadetam Savatutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Deva Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sahagana Vinita Shri Vishkam Vitam Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandha Jagapate Gopesha Gopeka Ganta Radhakanta Namostate Japta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Devacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. All right, so I'll just read the translation of the verses again. Text 4 was, the Apsara sent by Lord Brahma began strolling in a beautiful park near the place where the king was meditating and worshiping. The park was beautiful because of its dense green foliage and golden creepers. There were pairs of varied birds, such as peacocks, and in a lake there were ducks and swans, all vibrating very sweet sounds. Thus the park was magnificently beautiful because of the foliage, the clear water, the lotus flowers, and the sweet singing of various kinds of birds. As Purvachiti passed by on the road in a very beautiful style and mood of her own, the pleasing ornaments on her ankles tinkled with her every step. Although Prince Agnitra was controlling his senses, practicing yoga with half-open eyes, he could see her with his lotus-like eyes, and when he heard the sweet tinkling of her bangles, he opened his eyes slightly more and could see that she was just nearby. Okay. So in these verses and the few verses before this, we can see that actually Lord Brahma, he knew of Prince Agnidra's desire for a son, and so he sent a beautiful Apsara to him. And as we can see in this verse, she kind of promptly distracted him from controlling his senses at that time for doing his practice of mystic yoga. And he didn't even see her at first, right? He just heard those ankle bells. Just that one little sound to his ears was enough to get him to kind of break his concentration. And so traditionally, we see that the sexes are separated when pursuing spiritual life. This is not just our tradition. This is like pretty much every spiritual tradition. And that's because our senses can easily get carried away. The Bhagavad Gita tells us, as a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence, right? So you can just hear those little ankle bells, and suddenly your mind starts to wander, right? And now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I got to open my eyes. Now your mind starts to wander more, right? So now, before you know it, you're kind of completely off track from where you were. So we can easily become deluded by following our senses. And we can become angry. And so why is that? It's because our senses cannot be satisfied, right? So in the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 11th canto, it says, just as a fish, incited by the desire to enjoy his tongue, is fatally trapped on the fisherman's hook, similarly, a foolish person is bewildered by the extremely disturbing urges of the tongue and is thus ruined, right? So he's become just like that fish on that hook. And suddenly we're kind of being dragged around by our senses instead of actually being in control. Our senses are the ones that are in control. And so we also know, let's talk a little bit about anger. We know that if your senses are unsatisfied, then we kind of become angry, right? The Bhagavad Gita tells us there are 3 gates leading to this hell: lust, anger, and greed. Every sane man should give these up, for they lead to the degradation of the soul. And a little bit from that purport says, the beginning of demoniac life is described herein. One who tries to satisfy his lust, and when he cannot, anger and greed arise. A sane man who does not want to glide down to the species of demoniac life must try to give up these 3 enemies, which can kill the self to such an extent that there will be no possibility of liberation from this material entanglement. And then, of course, we're all very familiar with the verses in the 2nd chapter, right? When contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment, then lust develops, and then from lust the anger arises. From anger, complete delusion arises, and then from delusion, bewilderment of memory. And when your memory is bewildered, your intelligence is lost, and then you're falling back down into the material hole. So there's so many stories that illustrate this point, but the fact is that our mind becomes clouded because we're trying to satisfy our senses, but ultimately the problem is our senses can never be satisfied. I just laugh because I say this so much in my classes, but there's the concept of the hedonistic treadmill, right? Where you're running, it's like you're running on this treadmill, and the more you satisfy those senses, the faster and faster that treadmill goes, and you're not getting anywhere, and you're running faster and faster trying to satisfy your senses, and still your desire just keeps growing and growing, and you're running faster and faster. And so then you end up in situations where we have, people that have more than the entire planet combined, right? A single person has more wealth and resources than the whole rest of the earth, but yet they're still not satisfied. They're still trying to acquire more, right? Why is that? Because there is no satisfying the senses. It doesn't matter how hard you try, what you get. And so I just heard this story a few days ago, and it was something that happened in the 1990s. There was a waitress. You guys might remember this story, but there was a waitress. She worked at Waffle House in the 90s, and she had a regular customer who would often tip the waitresses with lottery tickets. And so her regular customer tipped her with the lottery ticket. She took it, and wouldn't you know, it was a winner. She won $10 million. So she's thinking, well, this is great. I don't have to work ever again. Now I can really enjoy it. And what ends up happening is her other coworkers, they sue her, and they say, no, there was an agreement that we were going to split this money 4 ways, because there was 4 of them. We always had this agreement. And she said, well, I never agreed to that. No one told me of this agreement. And so they sued her. The man that gave her the ticket, he actually testified in that lawsuit and said, oh yes, well, I intended them to share, I intended whoever wanted to share. And then he said, and furthermore, they said they were going to buy me a truck if they won, right? And so the judge found in her coworker's favor initially that she had to split the money between them. But then later she appealed that, and that was overturned. And she didn't have to split the money, so she was like, okay, finally, now I can enjoy it. She didn't have to share it with her coworkers. Then the man who gave her the ticket, then he sued her and said, well, you never bought me this truck. And so the judge immediately threw that case out too, because he said, since this is an agreement about gambling, we cannot enforce this, right? So now the lady's like, okay, finally, I got my money. Now I can enjoy. It'll be fine. And who comes knocking at the door but old Uncle Sam, and says, you owe us, like $1 million in taxes, right? And she had already given away so much money to her friends and family and stuff, so she didn't really have that much, but okay, fine. She had to deal with all these tax problems. Finally, she's like, okay, finally, now I can enjoy it. I can enjoy this finally, right? Whatever is left. Well, then her ex-husband comes around, and he actually kidnaps her, and he's trying to force her to give him money, and so he's taking her to this wilderness area and threatening her, like, to push her off, I think, a cliff or in a lake or something like that. And her phone starts ringing, her cell phone starts ringing. And so she says, oh, well, you better let me answer it or someone's going to come looking for me, And so finally he agrees to let her answer the phone. She picks it up, or she goes in her purse to get the phone, but instead she pulls out a gun and she shoots him. And so he's, now he's shot, he's dying. And he's still coming after her though. And then she says, well, you better let me drive you to the hospital or you're going to die. And so he agreed to that. So she drove him to the hospital. He survived. And so now maybe she can enjoy, right? So why did I tell this story? One is because the waitress, she could have been happy with a quarter of that money, right? $2.5 million. The day before, she didn't have any of that money. If someone came up to her and said, do you want $2.5 million? She would be like, sure, that'd be great. But instead, she was thinking about that 10 million. No, I need to have all of it, right? So she's kind of letting her senses get away with her. Then her coworkers, they could have, just been happy for their friend. But of course, no, they saw that money and thought, oh, no, it's mine. I got to get my hands on it, And the same with the man who gave her the ticket, right? None of them could really control their senses in the face of so much money. And then certainly her ex-husband, his intelligence absolutely was lost, right? He wanted that money so bad, he ended up getting shot for it, right? He committed a crime, he kidnapped her. And so all of these people kind of lost control of their senses just because of the promise of some money, right? And and the IRS, they're always after you. So I guess, I don't know if that counts. So all these people, they kind of lost their intelligence, and at least her husband ended up shot because of it. So now is she still enjoying? I don't know. But even if you get what you want, it's very difficult to actually enjoy it, right? So even if you get that $10 million, are you going to be able to enjoy it? No, because all your friends and family are after you, your coworkers are after you. So even if you get that, you might not be able to enjoy it. In fact, most likely you won't. So only bhakti can actually control our senses. And if we engage our senses in devotional service, all of our senses are automatically going to be controlled, because we're going to get that higher taste, right? It's something that's better. It's better than all these kind of low forms of enjoyment. So, because if we satisfy Krishna, who is the origin of everything, then we automatically will satisfy ourselves. So the devotee actually realizes the futility of trying to gratify the senses. So I used to really love to shop online. I don't really like shopping in person so much. I don't like, it's just too hectic, but I enjoyed shopping online. I could spend time, choosing, oh yes, I want this thing or that thing. I had a relationship years ago, and my partner would give me money, and I originally was giving it away to my friend, and then they found out and they got mad. They said, "No, you have to spend it." And I was like, "Oh, okay, I guess I have to spend this money, or they're just going to take it away." So I would spend so much time, shopping online, and I had a good time. It was really nice, finding different things to spend this money on. But now, like one time, somewhat recently, I got some money and I was thinking, oh yes, I will try to have a good time by trying to find something to buy. And it was just, the joy was gone. It was just not fun anymore. It was like not good at all, because I know that there's something better here, right? That's serving Krishna. And I was thinking, oh, what am I going to do if I get this, stupid trinket or this new clothes or something? It's not going to make me be any happier, right? And so this is something that we can see demonstrated in the stories. So this made me think of the story of Devahuti, right, and Karma Muni. They were able to enjoy so much, right? There was Devahuti was serving her husband very nicely, but she was like a princess, and she was serving her husband very nicely, who was a yogi, and he was content to just kind of live under a tree and not have very much, and she was used to a very extravagant lifestyle. But she took care of her husband so nicely that one day he realized that she had become a little bit kind of, she had gotten skinny. She just wasn't able to take care of herself like she used to when she was a princess. And he realized that he wanted to do something for her. And she also wanted a son. She wanted a child. And so he made this big, amazing floating aerial mansion. I think you talked about this a few days ago on Friday, I guess. So he made this big, beautiful aerial mansion, which is like so beyond any kind of enjoyment that we can have. I mean, imagine like floating in a big, beautiful city with all kinds of great, animals and gardens and things like that, and then beautiful friends for you there too, and servants and everything, right? And you're just traveling around the universe for such a long time with your great love, and just enjoying and having a wonderful time. So, I mean, none of us can even hope to attain that level of enjoyment. But still, after that was over, Devahuti was lamenting, right? Because she said, we should have spent this time engaging in the Lord's service, right? It was a waste of time, basically. And so we can see there's nothing that we can do to attain that level of enjoyment. And Devahuti had that enjoyment and still was like, nope, we should have been serving the Lord with this time. Instead, we wasted so much time. The other story that kind of demonstrates the point that if we do serve Krishna and we do try to satisfy Krishna's senses, that automatically our senses will be satisfied too. And so this made me think of the story of Sudama, the Brahmin, right? He was a friend of Krishna's. They went to school together, and so he was, after he grew up, he was married to his wife, and they were very poor. And they were getting very skinny. And his wife was becoming concerned for her husband. She was worried he was just going to kind of waste away. And so she asked her husband, please, why don't you go talk to Krishna? He's your friend. Maybe he can help us. And Sudama went to go visit Krishna. And he wanted to bring him a gift because that's customary, right? And so the only thing he could manage to scrape up was some chipped rice, which is very humble gift. And I think I read he had to ask the neighbors to help him get that, So was really the only thing he could bring. And so he gets to Krishna's house, and Krishna welcomes him like this long lost friend, and gives him his place to sit. I mean, it's just really touching. And so they're talking, and Krishna is just treating him very nicely. And so Krishna's like, you did you bring me something? And Sudama was trying to hide his humble gift. He was a little bit embarrassed. But Krishna took that gift, he found it, and he started eating it, and he became so in such ecstasy just from eating that little chipped rice, because that was what his friend brought him, and it was that love in which he brought it. Krishna was enjoying it so much, right? And Sudama, he was too embarrassed to really even ask for help. He didn't even ask Krishna. He didn't even tell him why he came. He just kind of visited, and then later he came home, only to see that his home was now like this big, beautiful house, this big, beautiful palace, and his wife was now, dressed in the finest clothes and everything. And so Krishna was able to fulfill, his, satisfy his senses without him even asking, right? And so even in this situation, we see that Prince Agnidra, he didn't go looking to satisfy his senses, right? He wasn't going on some dating site to try to find a lady to have a baby with, right? Even though he wanted to have that son. He wasn't going on Tinder, yeah. He wasn't going on Tinder or Plenty of Fish or I don't know, any of the other Match.com. No, he wasn't doing that, right? He was going about his business, trying to control his senses, doing his practice of mystic yoga. And then Lord Brahma brought him a beautiful apsara, right? And so he didn't chase after her. I mean, he does woo her. He does woo her in the coming verses. But he didn't set out to do that, right? He set out about trying to control his senses, and his senses were, Krishna made sure that, yeah, you want to say something?
He was trying to control his senses, but for the purpose of sense gratification. He was doing austerity to get sense gratification, not to please Krishna.
Yeah.
It's and in that sense, it's still pious, but he was not thinking, oh, I'm going to please Krishna. He was thinking, I'm going to please, like Haranyakashipu, but minor.
It's still, he was at least not, willy-nilly gratifying his senses, which is what everybody does now, right? If you ever watch Cops or any show like that, I've seen so many episodes where the cops are called to some horrible violent fight, and then they're talking, they always try to find out, okay, why are you guys fighting? What is this about? And almost 100% of the time, it is because this person has prevented me from indulging my senses in some way, right? Whether it's, they've prevented me from hitting on a girl, or they prevented me by stealing my woman, or they prevented me by taking my items that gratify my senses. So 100% of the time, it's because they were not able to gratify their senses. Therefore, now there's violence. So if we just focus on pleasing Krishna, then we'll also be pleased, because we know to completely satisfy ourselves, we need to have unmotivated and uninterrupted devotional service. And that is how we can completely satisfy ourselves. And although we should not go in with that attitude, right? We should be going in with the attitude that we want to please Krishna. So, but it's a great side effect that we're going to also be pleased. And because I think sometimes when people look at a life of devotional service, they think a little bit like, oh, well, I'm going to miss out on things. I'm going to miss out on gratifying my senses. I'm going to miss out on so many things. But that's simply not true, because Krishna knows what we need, and he wants to make us happy too, right? And so if we please his senses, automatically our senses are pleased. Just like, watering the roots of a tree. And where the leaves, Krishna is the root, right? So we water the root. And so do you think that, that waitress that got that $10 million or whatever was left after all those lawsuits and things, do you think her senses are completely satisfied, even though, probably not, who knows if she even still has any of that money, but if she had tried to serve Krishna with that money, her senses would be satisfied, right? And so Krishna can actually gratify our senses better than we could ever gratify them. So why not focus on satisfying his senses? Because he will take care of us. So I think I don't really have much more than that. And if you have any stories of how you were able to gratify your senses through your devotional service, and it was a surprise to you, or anything like that, please. Anyway.
2 pieces of olive oil a day work.
What's that?
2 pieces of olive oil a day work.
Yeah, there you go. 22 pieces of olive oil a day. Yeah, exactly. That's what it's about, right? And then, and we see so many people come here. I worked in several restaurants over my life, but never have I worked in a restaurant where people they become obsessed, right? And they just say, "Oh my God, this is so good. This is so wonderful," And then if you think about it objectively, it's nothing super fancy. We're not, we're not like Gordon Ramsay here, making some elaborate thing. This is kind of simple preparations, and people are just, completely crazy about it, and they keep coming back. There was one guy who would come every lunch and every dinner, for years, right? We had a customer last night, and I actually posted her on our social media. I asked her if I could take a picture of her. She'd come 2 nights in a row, and she said, "Oh, I came last night for the nut loaf, and it was so good. I just had to come back again tonight." And so I asked her if I could, take her picture and put that on our social media, and she said, yeah. So, these kinds of things don't happen at other restaurants. Not the ones that I've worked at. So, yeah.
Yeah, people going crazy for beans and rice.
Yeah.
In Arizona. Arizona, beans, rice, and steamed vegetables.
Yeah.
In Arizona, and becoming obsessed with it. That is saying something. That's proof that prasadam is real, because when you look at it objectively, when I look at the lunch, sometimes you got potatoes, steamed vegetables, beans and rice, and dal. That's what you have, and then the halva, and it's vegan halva, it's vegan halva. And still people are obsessed. Crazily obsessed. It's our favorite place. We got to come here, And
yeah. How many customers do we have that try to steal all the halva off the buffet? I know you know about that, Ananta Prabhu. Yeah. It's multiple customers come because they're obsessed with the halva, right? They try to take them all. Yeah, you have something?
When Damodar and I got married in the Denver temple, I was working at Curves for women. It was kind of elderly women. And anyway, a bunch of them came because I invited everybody from work. And they said, "This is the best food I have ever tasted." And they were quite elderly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Prasadam.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. And it was some brahmachari who stole the top cake or something. And Divya Dristi, she's my friend. And she was going to make the cake, but then she couldn't, so I had to make it. But she decorated it, everything. She went over to the brahmachari ashram and got it back. She was like, "Of all the nerve." It was quite funny.
Yeah.
What was you going to say that? all of our senses can be satisfied in Krishna consciousness. There's no sense that can be satisfied. Even the grossest senses are all Krishna consciousness. It can all be satisfied, nicely, and in a way that serves Krishna,
Mhm.
and in a way that actually diminishes that desire. Because like when I first came, you were around. The amount of prasadam I would eat.
A mountain.
It would be like a mountain. Indian night was like, I'd eat myself sick. I remember one time, Navina Narada Prabhu was here, and he sat down with a little plate of prasadam, and I take prasadam Prabhu, and his eyes just went like, when he saw my plate, and he's like, Jai. And now on Indian night, I barely eat,
Yeah.
a little bowl of chickpeas, and some sabji, but somehow or another, Krishna had to fulfill that desire of getting, being able to just indulge on the greatest food in the world for a while. It's like in Mayapur, I love pizza.
Yeah.
And then in Mayapur, they have this nice devotees making pizza there. And, I had to indulge myself in eating pizza prasadam. But now I don't crave pizza prasadam anymore. So, Krishna, he fulfills all desires. And not just that, even like subtle desires. And I grew up, I was doing music every day of my life since I was 9 years old, playing music and liking to be on stage and talking to people, like rock star stuff. And I thought, okay, I gave that up and I became a devotee. And then when I went to India this year, Radheshyam Prabhu took me up and he took me to all these places, and you're on in the literal auditorium with just full of people and on a stage, and then doing a kirtan, and people are mosh pitting. And I think this is it. Krishna is actually fulfilling my desire to be a rock star, but in a Krishna conscious way. And I was overwhelmed. I was thinking to myself, this verse from the Bible, because it was really overwhelming. Because I guess they really loved my kirtan. Radheshyam loved my kirtan so much. I don't know why. I don't understand it. But as Nitai, we had this kirtan that was so crazy in Calcutta, it was crazy. It was just a madhouse. And I was leading, and I was thinking to myself, it's not me who lives, but he who lives in me. Meaning that it's all the empowerment of Guru and Krishna that's causing this. But I was thinking simultaneously, my desires are getting fulfilled. And these are things I gave up, but then Krishna somehow he uses that. He's like, okay, you gave it up, now I'm going to bring it back to you. That ability for you to be on the stage and to fire people up, I'm going to give that back to you. And even just I was thinking, when I became a devotee, I had to play the guitar for a long time, and then I started playing guitar. I was thinking, I spent so many years playing the guitar. What if I can use that in Krishna service? And Mother Swami asked me to do the George Harrison thing.
Yeah.
And so then they gave me a fully bona fide excuse to play the guitar, and practice. So it's amazing. Krishna will fulfill all our desires.
Yeah. Hi, welcome. So that made me think of every time I decide, okay, I'm gonna eat a little healthier now. I'm gonna not have any sweets. And then what happens? Oh, here comes Jamuna knocking on my door. Hey, I made you this cake. And I don't know why Krishna does this to me. Or Shanta will be like, oh, I left some pizza in your room, and and so this is what happens literally every time.
Well, it'd be an offense not to take it,
Yeah. I've many times, it's a known fact, if you say, oh, you know what, I think I'm going to fast for breakfast. I'm not going to have breakfast today, I'm going to fast. Well, that's the day that your mom makes pizza for breakfast, right? And then you're like, oh.
Every time. Every time.
Yeah.
That's why it hasn't been pizza in so long, because we've just surrendered our desire to fast.
Oh, here you come now. Did you bring pizza?
I don't know.
Yeah. So Krishna will fulfill all of your desires and make sure that you do have sense gratification. Even as even that sense gratification though will become more refined too as you progress.
And we, in a way that we give it up. That's the point.
Yeah.
Because the real pleasure is Krishna. We don't Like we can eat you can put all the pizza in front of me in the world. If it's not prasadam, I won't even look at it.
Right.
It's like, won't even sound attractive at all. Nothing's attractive about it if it's not prasadam.
Yeah, exactly.
It can't be offered to Krishna. It's totally unattractive.
What I was saying about like, oh, we're not Gordon Ramsay, the preparations we have are very simple. I was just thinking too, like, oh, I wouldn't really want anything that Gordon Ramsay cooked,
You can read the last verse in the 8th chapter of Bhagavad Gita.
Last
Sounds
verse
like
in the
your
8th chapter. Okay. A person who accepts the path of devotional service is not bereft of the results derived from studying the Vedas, performing austere sacrifices, giving charity, or pursuing philosophical and fruitive activities. Simply by performing devotional service, he attains all these, and at the end, he reaches the supreme abode. That's the one you wanted? Yeah. All right. So, any more comments, questions, refutations? Yeah.
And then also, I read many times that you're supposed to fast on fasting days.
Yeah.
And Ekadashi and fasting days. And so it's not like for your personal, whatever.
Yeah.
But, anyway, I just wanted to say that.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
Krishna.
Yeah, we should be doing these things for Krishna, not for, because there's so many people that fast, right? And they're doing it just for their health, for their physical fitness.
Which is good.
It's good if you do that for Krishna.
Yeah.
Krishna's Bhaktaram Yagya Tapasam. So everything all the austerities we do, that means in whatever situation, we're a Kshatriya or a Brahmachari or we're a Grihasta, and we're going to end up doing some austerity. And so in that way, we have to offer that to Krishna. And I was thinking of this verse too. Krishna says, forget the Sanskrit. This is the first verse of the 6th chapter. Anashrita karma palam karyam karma kartavyam sa sannyasi cha yogi na niragnir na chakriyahai. That the real sannyasi is he who performs his duties accordingly, whatever they may be, but he's not attached to the results. And I was thinking how easy it is to get attached to the results of action.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, it's so easy, and we don't even realize how we're getting attached. We're thinking, even like we were like in saffron cloth, we're thinking, I'm doing, you realize you're so attached to even the fruits of any little work you do, or even, it's just so easy to become attached to the fruits. So, important point.
Absolutely. And this did make me think of, it's hard, I have friends that predate me, my trying to become Krishna conscious, and, trying to explain to them the amount of happiness and joy I get from, basically doing the same thing every day, right? Okay, so you're sitting in a room with a bunch of other people and you're just saying the same thing over and over again. They think I'm crazy, right? And I try to explain like how joyful and how fulfilling it is. But they can't quite understand it until you experience it. So, yeah. So, anyway, so yes, let's gratify Krishna's senses, and the great side effect is we will also be gratified. So, oh yeah.
Srila Prabhupada makes a point many times that the Maha Mantra is not comes directly from the spiritual world. It's non-different from Krishna, so it's not the same as repetitive
Right.
Some other mundane mantra.
Yeah, my cousin, she comes here occasionally, and she brought one of her friends, I think from work or something, with her. And so she brought her to the Sunday feast, and she was just sitting back here while we're doing the kirtan, and she was just crying. She was just weeping, and she was like, I don't know why I'm crying. And my cousin was telling me, she's like, because it's God, that's why. And, and she's like, no, I think it's reminding me of my dog. I miss him. And I'm like, no, that's not why. Anyway, she definitely was profoundly affected. And if we were, like Prabhupada said, if we're just chanting Coca-Cola, Coca-Cola, it's not, she wouldn't have been crying, right? I don't think so. So, all
I mean,
right.
there's like, even our friend Caitlin.
Yeah.
Needs to be brought back by someone, but she was like super against Krishna consciousness when, Curtis was coming around. And like finally she came to the temple and she read one page of the Bhagavad Gita or something,
Yeah.
She like read one page and she's like, okay, I'll go to the temple. And then she started chanting. She was like looking at the mantra, and chanting, trying to chant, and she started crying.
Yeah.
And she was coming every day for a while, do you remember?
Yeah. That reminded me of that one story. There was some devotees that were on Sankirtan, and they gave this older woman a book, and I guess, I don't know if she couldn't read or she didn't read it or whatever. Some years later, some more devotees came to her house and were doing book distribution, and she got afraid that they were going to take the book away. She said she would look at that picture of Srila Prabhupada and talk to him every night. And then she just became so attached to Srila Prabhupada in that way. She didn't even read the book. She just saw his picture. And so she was afraid the devotees were coming back to take the book away from her. And she didn't want them to do that. And so, no, naturally they gave her more books. So anyway, so that's the power of this. Of devotional service, right? Even something like reading one page or seeing a picture of Srila Prabhupada or hearing the mantra one time is enough to completely change your life and have this profound effect. So let's do that. All right? So we'll end here. Thank you.